I just attended a conference where they had a panel of millennials, and the first millennial said, I hate commercials, I never watch them, I find every way to avoid them. What can agencies do to make commercials more viewable and maybe
Well,
overcome this bias?
I take issue with that one panelist, only because I was at a panel last week where it was a panel all about cross-platform attribution. And basically they brought in 4 people from the market. It was Austin, Texas, where this panel was happening. And the interesting thing to me, because I love focus groups, I love hearing the voice of the consumer. And so these 4 people were up on the stage. One guy was fairly young, high 20s, low 30s, one in her mid 30s, and then a couple that were a little bit older than that. And when they talked about their devices and they talked about what they did with them, they also talked about commercials. And the funny thing is, they all started laughing at different commercials that they had seen, including the youngest guy, the ad avoiding, younger millennial. And the commercial that they all loved was for an insurance company that's got a little character that you might have heard of, right? And it was hysterical because the whole room was laughing about the Geico, the gecko from Geico. It was such a cultural touchstone, right? And again, these were younger people. These aren't people who are significantly older demographic. And I think that advertising, when it's done right, it cuts through all that. And so it doesn't matter if you're young or old. People respond to good advertising, and I think that puts a lot of pressure on us as a company. I'm part of Omnicom, to come up with creative ways to reach people and persuade them. But I think when you do, again, whether you're talking about a 30-second spot, whether you're talking about the Jeff Gordon test drive, which was something that we did with BBDO for Pepsi Max, that got real, pickup in popular popular phenomenon, popular what people were talking about. It was very popular. People are still talking about it. So probably a year ago that we did that. And so I think there are things like that where they have legs and you can use them to persuade people. And I never ever use a sample of the size of 1, but my 8-year-old is fascinating because she watches TV, yes she does, and she watches commercials. And she'll say, and I'll say, why don't you fast forward that? Because we have a DVR and she can fast forward. She goes, well, I like it, Daddy. Sometimes I like to hear about the products they're talking about, or I like the jingles. And my older daughter, who's 11, is less interested in that, but she still, they can tell me all the jingles for the different products that are advertised either on VOD, which they watch a lot of, or even the stuff that they watch via VOD. So I think the whole death of the commercial thing is a little overblown, because I think commercials are still a fundamental part of our society. Everyone, there's a perception among Madison Avenue that every single person skips commercials. I don't think that's true, and the data backs that up. And I think good commercials, I've been watching programming, and I'll stop, something will catch your eye and I'll say, oh, that's interesting, and people do stop and look at good commercials. So I guess the takeaway from that is good creative always wins out. And I don't think that's just for linear TV. I think that's true online. I have colleagues that have commented to me about different campaigns that were much more digital focused. Adobe's an example of one, where they were really targeting people outside of TV through digital campaigns, through tablet campaigns, and they were even running print ads. And I thought that was an interesting approach that Adobe, which is a very digital company, was reinforcing their message with print as well as through the newer communications channels. Consumers, when they find good creative or when they stumble across a compelling offer, that's going to resonate for them, and I think that's what we need to take away.
There are so many platforms now. You mentioned Adobe's campaign with print, and of course there's mobile and tablet and online and television. How are you measuring cross-platform?
It's a challenge. And I think we're trying to use the best sources that we can out there, but it is challenging. And we're looking for some of those traditional research companies, people like ComScore, people like Nielsen, people like Kantar, to come up with tools that we can use to understand even the high level, how much time are people spending with different devices. The CRE did a great study earlier this year on I think it was called the Untethered study, and it gave us some good insights about how to reach people at different times of the day with different types of devices. That was very useful for us in some of our strategy teams. I think we are huge consumers of the information that's out there. and we love the studies that come out. We do our own work as well in this area. We have a primary research team where we'll conduct our own research about either big demographic trends or different products and services that are in the marketplace that we think are compelling to a large number of clients, for Omnicom. But the net is the data so far is sort of inadequate. We have hope. I have hope for tools like online GRPs that you can use to compare a delivery in TV with a delivery for a digital campaign, whether it be display or online video. And I think there's great potential for those types of tools. We use some of those tools on some accounts very regularly. Some accounts, they're just starting to embrace them, but I think that's one of the tools that we think has a lot of promise in the future. And the nice thing about that is it's a competitive space. There's lots of vendors who provide those tools in terms of online GRPs, and so it gives us a lot of flexibility in terms of how we deploy those for clients.